Okay, so I have here my program with drawing grids, right? My sketch to draw grids. And at the bottom here, I've set some stroke weight stuff that I was using to play with. What was I playing with? The rect command. So now I'm going to play with the ellipse command. Pop quiz. What's an ellipse? No. A circle is an ellipse. An ellipse is mathematically, I think, described best as a smushed circle. Smushed being a very precise term. So if you want to draw an ellipse, if I want to draw a circle, right, I can use the point command and set the stroke weight up or down. That's a hack and bashy way to do that. Don't. Use the right way, which is to draw an ellipse where the width and the height are the same.
It's weird that rect mode radius was actually really rect mode ellipse that had two different radii in each direction.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a reasonable point. And I'm going to see that here. The ellipse should take 4 things, right? What do you basically expect the 4 things to be? Yeah, probably the middle, right? Like the center. So I'm going to make an ellipse that's at 200, oh God, 200, 300. Sorry, I can't type. Ignore all the badness of typing. And then it expects 2 more parameters. So those are my center.
It'll probably be the height and the width. Would we have that?
It'd probably be the height and the width, but
yeah, be the radiuses.
No.
Radii.
Nice try. Good guess. No. The height and the width. That's it. Except.
It's distance from the center.
No. Except. What order should they be in? Yeah, they're width and then height, right? So I'm going to make a rectangle that's 100 wide and 300 tall. Wait, I said rectangle.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Okay, so this thing really does kind of think about a rectangle, right? And then draws an ellipse inside of it. So we went over 200, down 300, and then we drew an ellipse that was 100 wide and 300 tall.
well, it's actually the width, not the radius.
Yeah, it's actually the width, not the radius. However, there is in fact an ellipse mode.
Corners?
Yeah, and corners is one of the modes. So the modes for ellipse mode are basically the same as they are for the rect mode, except that the default is center. Right, so remember what the rectangle modes were? They were... So let me remind myself here. Above this, I'm going to write possible choices, right? Possible choices were corner, oh, whoops, sorry, caps, and spelling. Corner, corners,
Center.
spelling is hard,
Radius and
center, and radius. So same as they were for the rectangle. The default, though, is center, not corner. If you set it to corner, it needs to be capitalized. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I can't type at all. I really should take I should take a keyboarding class. Mavis Beacon has so much to teach me. What happened there? What was up with this? Why did it do something weird? Where is it? What's going on? Help. What did I expect it to do? The corner's at 200, 300, which is here. Why isn't that in the ellipse?
the corner of the rectangle.
Yeah, it's the corner of the smallest rectangle containing your ellipse. Bugger. you'll note that I'm not going to use the corner mode for ellipses very often, because it's weird.
Yeah, they don't even have corners.
Yeah, ellipses don't have corners, so saying corner mode for an ellipse is a little funky. But it is 100 wide, and it's 300 tall. You can't see that the bottom end is kind of cut off here, right? But it's 300 tall. If I do radius, what's that going to do?
It'll let you set the radii.
Yeah, it'll basically double the size, right? It's going to, instead of interpreting 100 as the width of the ellipse, it's going to interpret 100 as the width from the center to the side, right? Which is kind of a horizontal radius. And then the 600 or the 300 is going to get interpreted as the distance from the middle to the top. So, giant ellipse. You guys cool with this? Okay. I think that's what I wanted. Any questions, concerns, deals on rectangles, ellipses, or modes? Oh, there's maybe one thing. Remember how this was supposed to take an integer? What if you put 0 in it? Yeah, that's going to be the default. Remember, computer science starts counting at 0, not at 1. So this is going to be the, what was the default? Oh no. That's the default for what? Yeah, right now it's in corner mode. Why is it the default for corner mode? Because it's the default for rectangle, and apparently rectangle is the default shape. Ah! Just mean. Yeah, I would advise for you to use the words in here. So if I want it to be the default, I'm going to put in a center, or I'm just going to comment this line out.
If you put like a nonsensical like -4, this is the default.
Oh yeah, if you do something weird, let's check. It'll probably do something bizarre. My guess is that it'll yell at us, but...
Well, it'll probably count down.
Nope, that's corner mode.
Yeah, so it's just wait, so it's...
My guess is if I put in -5, I'll get a different mode. Nope, maybe not. Cool. So, if it's negative, apparently it just defaults out. I would have guessed that that would mod, but whatever.
Oh gosh, what happened if they multiplied 4? Oh no. Okay. It expects an integer, but if you get a float.
Then it'll yell at me.
Well,
So, there's a valid point. What's a float? Why is it yelling at me about 3.7? 3.7 is a number.
It's not an integer.
Yeah, but it's not an integer, right? An integer is like a counting number, maybe a -1, maybe 0. And a float is a decimal value, right? So it's going to whine about that. If I put a float in one of these, 100.5, it's not whining about that.
it expects a float.
Yeah, because it expects a float, and it's okay with an integer. You guys see that? So if it's expecting a float, you can feed it an integer. If it's expecting an integer, you can't give it a float. Okay,
Why
cool.
doesn't it expect a float for
Basically, because I'm going to want to draw those when there's calculations being done, and I don't want to have to round every single time, so they built the rounding into the drawing.
Oh, so that's just the class that's defined for each step of the calculation itself.
Yeah, that's part of the class definition. Don't worry if that word didn't make any sense. Any questions on this whole
What is a
shebang?
float?
What?
What is a float?
A float is a decimal number with, it should be noted, a finite number of decimal places, because computers don't do infinite things. So it will round. If you tell it to take 1 and divide by 3, it is going to round. Cool? All right.